The May 4th, 2026 Auburn City Council workshop will be called to order. The first item on the agenda tonight is a workshop item for replacing the Complete Streets Committee with a new Parking and Traffic Safety Committee. Mr. Manager?
Thank you, Mayor, Council. So what we have before you is just the beginning of a draft of looking to, when it comes to some of our committees, I think it's good for us to evaluate their efficiency, good use of time for our citizens that participate on the boards as well, and then what are our current needs or upcoming needs that we have in the community. And this is one that we've been identifying, we as in staff have been identifying some upcoming needs that we think is really beneficial to having a committee that's involved in some of the decision making process as far as issues related to parking, issues related to speed concerns, pedestrian safety, and as we've had, even during some of our comp plan discussions early on, this was a topic that many of the citizens that were participating in these open sessions wanted to share with the group about some of their concerns regarding their neighborhood. We also saw changes with state law as it pertains to parking regulations and the impact that parking will have within our communities. We're working now on making some parking changes that you'll see soon related to solid waste pickup and how that might impact a neighborhood. So we get a lot of inquiries from citizens that are concerned about these issues. And we took a look at other communities and some of the committees that they have. And the one that we found was really, I think, producing good results for the community was in Portsmouth, New Hampshire. And so I spent some time watching some of their committee meetings, taking a look at the items, topics that come before the committee. And in this plan, this committee will be drafting some of their own rules. And part of that process will be, how do they get information from the public? We would be creating a form that our citizens could actually submit to the committee for review. They could even come before the committee to talk about their concerns at one of their meetings. We see this more valuable in the time that our committee members are spending, as well as producing good results for our citizens that have concerns related to all of these issues. I think you all send me, forward me a inquiry from a resident at least once a month. I get something, but if you multiply that out with all of you, we get a lot of inquiries, not just through the council, but we get a lot of inquiries just through the city from public being concerned about issues related to speeding, pedestrian, bike safety, all those matters. When it comes to the Complete Streets Committee, I think the Complete Streets Committee, part of their initial work was creating a policy. And that policy came before the City Council. The policy is now in place. And so when the engineering team works on road design and changes within some of those construction projects, they're building these based on the policy regarding complete streets. So I have the three directors that will spend the majority of the time with this committee here to talk about why they see this being beneficial for the community. We can go over the ordinance and show you the changes in this and why we think the committee based on the size makes good sense, and then representation from each of the departments as well that will be participating in this. Let me start with the ordinance. So the membership will go through just like we do all of our other committees. There'll be a application process, and then the ad hoc committee will, the committee on committees, I think is the term we use. So that appointment committee will take a look and vet those who apply and ensure that we have good representation. We have staggered terms within our appointments. We'll have 2 officer positions with the four-member committee. And then we'll also, like I said before, they'll have process on being able to handle the business that comes before them, ensuring that it's just like any other committee. We're posting agendas. Public will know when this meeting is. They'll be able to come in and present their concerns or hear about initiatives that are being worked on. If we're working on a traffic calming initiative within a certain neighborhood, then we need to make sure that neighborhood knows that that meeting's happening and an opportunity for people to come in and hear, but also participate in by sharing their concerns. We really identified the major focus of duties for this group. Obviously, the traffic safety conditions, specifically around school zones. Those are our priority as far as where does crosswalk placement happen. We've worked on that on Gamage Ave is probably a good example of where we worked on that, as well as the crosswalk that was recently placed on for the high school and on Western. And so those are good process. I think we've kind of worked that through, but there's not a opportunity for the public to really weigh in on a lot of that as some of that is taking place. This gives that opportunity. Traffic enforcement, this is goes in hand with the enforcement strategies the chief is working on with the traffic enforcement plan, being able to share that with the public, let the public weigh in on that, whereas their concerns regarding speeding, how are we deploying calming measures, how are we deploying radar speed signs so that we can collect data before we deploy officers, so we make sure we're deploying them where appropriate. Already mentioned some of the concerns regarding on-street parking regulations. I think we'll be seeing more concerns of this. One of you recently emailed me regarding a tractor trailer on a road and concerns with that. And, the chief got back to me today regarding some of those restrictions. This committee was there, then that committee would have taken that complaint and they would have been able to process that and got back to that individual. Off-street municipal parking regulations, I think that we've had, over the years, we've had numerous plans regarding municipal parking. And we need to dig more into that. This committee would be able to spend some time talking about, is there a pay and display option, so that if I'm coming here and I'm going to be doing something in the city, downtown rather, throughout the day, is there an easier way for me to be able to get a permit so that I can stay parked for the day in a permitted area rather than needing to find out how do I get a day pass. Most people won't know to do that. Most people will come in and say, okay, I got to remove my car every 2 hours because I'm over at the courthouse, not realizing that we have a hopscotch type ordinance that says you can't park for 2 hours in one space and then go in another space and park for another 2 hours. That triggers a violation. And we get a lot of those. And so having this committee really work on a plan for us and being able to vet some of those discussions regarding what should our municipal parking options look like, what would be beneficial, what future investment could we be making for these pay and display type of system, so that we can encourage more people to be parking in our parking garage. I think that's part of that effort in the downtown. We see people trying to find spaces in different areas. They do more work trying to find a space than if they just came into the parking garage and make one available to them. So where we have them available. Wayfinding signage that directs pedestrians, cyclists, and then operators regarding certain points of interest. And so how do we build on that we've already started working on? And then we had a presentation not that long ago with the Vision Zero initiatives, and let this committee, as they're working on their agendas, as there's time within their agenda, to be able to say, okay, let's get an update on where we are with Vision Zero. What are we doing regarding some of our efforts as it pertains to traffic enforcement? And but then I think the other piece that we're missing out on currently is that public education and outreach component. Sometimes that can get dropped off. And so if there's a issue or concern that's happening, Why aren't we communicating to some of our driver education schools that are educating now? How do we get that information to them about what we're seeing as impacts within the community, so they can work that into part of their curriculum as they're instructing? Already talked about staff support. This is the team that you'd be seeing, as well as fire, especially as it pertains to parking concerns. I think that's all I have here. Dan's here. Dan can talk more about Complete Streets, what they're currently doing, what we're, that process that Complete Streets currently works on, how we would take that and really just continue doing what we're doing in-house. And that would be the process. I don't know, Dan, if you want to share a little bit about the current process.
So currently, as the city develops the CIP, and typically over the winter months, our design projects are designed, our construction projects are designed, and those different designs are presented to the Complete Streets Committee during one of their meetings to say, we are overlaying X street and we plan on striping it to have 5-foot shoulders or 2-foot shoulders or whatever the design is. The Complete Streets Committee then weighs in whether or not they agree with the design, they'd like to see something different. I think we've come before the council twice in the past 8 to 10 years with a disagreement between us and the Complete Streets Committee, us being the engineering department, and what we'd like to see versus what the Complete Streets Committee would like to see. Both times the council has agreed with the engineering department, and I believe it was mostly due to cost and the constructability of what was being presented versus what the Complete Streets Committee. It'd be great to have 5-foot paved shoulders on every street. It'd be great to have sidewalks on every street, both sides, 6 feet wide. We would love nothing more than to do that, but unfortunately, the reality of the situation is we can't afford that. So every project that's designed, all of those things are looked at, and what we anticipate as part of this new committee is the same process will occur. Right now, it's Lewiston staff and Auburn staff that are, and Auburn citizens and Lewiston citizens that sit on the Complete Streets Committee. Moving forward, it would just be presenting to this Transportation Committee, so it would be Auburn citizens and staff.
Thanks, Dan. So we'll accept some questions that you might have. I think the last piece I just want to share is that we do put safety concerns, neighborhood calming in our CIP, and having a committee that can then talk with staff about priorities, what are we working towards, and then we recently shifted parking expenses and revenue into a special revenue account. And that committee would also be part of getting that report, hearing what that looks like as we work towards accomplishing the priorities that have been set, especially related to parking. So, Mayor.
Questions from the council? Councilor Duval?
I just want to say, this sounds like a great idea. The one thing I wanted to flag that I don't see in there, but I think it might be worth noting, is we talk about bicycle and pedestrian transportation. There are not a lot of bike racks around, right? So you get someplace, where do you park your bike? When I get to City Hall on my bike, I put it downstairs next to the doors. There's no bike rack at City Hall. So that's just an example. So I would just want to add that somewhere.
Yep, great.
Councilor Gary?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Now, last week we voted to, when somebody builds apartments or businesses, they don't have to have, when they have, by ordinance, they have to have certain parking places. But what we passed was they don't have to be right out front, and we don't need to give people in a family 2 places. They can park somewhere else near the facility and still qualify to build that building or apartment. Now, will this committee also follow this, what we just got from state law and that we just now passed last week or last meeting?
Well, I think they'll be working through what are some of those challenges as a result of that, right? I think that's going to be really a priority, especially if we have think about some of our properties that have a mixed use in the building, and as we see more of this with a retail space on the first floor, what are we doing to ensure a turnover in front of that building so that there's a turnover for individuals going into that retail store? And those kind of complaints will come to a committee like this. We haven't had to discuss it for quite some time, but we've gone back and forth on Main Street on what's the right hourly parking for restaurants, right? What's that turnover? Because you don't want to, if there's a big line and you're there for longer than 2 hours, or your parking's only going to be there for 2 hours, but you want that group should be the group that's going into all of that retail space, but that should not be the parking that's available for the housing that's above it. Where should that be located, and how can we work that through? So I guess, yes, the committee will be working on that. No, the committee won't be looking to change anything with that because a majority of that has been dictated by state law. But anything else that's determined, really, there won't be any other restrictions because that's now been pretty much set, so which changed our ordinance requirements.
Other questions? Council Butler.
I think this is a great idea. I know I've been one of your frequent flyers when it comes to sharing some of the concerns that I hear around some of the road, sidewalk, you name it, issues. Do you foresee this as a committee that is also going to assist with the rollout around the Casella project? Two separate things.
I think two separate. They might get complaints after it's rolled out. Then the group might come forward. Because, I already know that we're going to have, as I was driving through some areas that the team has already identified, as I was driving through this weekend, checking some of those spots, I already know there's going to be an issue like on Summer Street and by Summer and Row. If you're going out that way, there's just no way you can possibly continue having parking on one side of the road. And I think right now it's November to April, I think, on one side. And it's just not going to be an option. And so some of that will come up, I think, once the rollout is in place. And then I think the committee will hear some of those concerns and then talk with the staff about what should we be doing here and what changes do we need to put in place.
Council Cowan? No, sorry. Any other? Council Walker?
Yeah, thank you. I'd like to just remind us, when we did this street people committee and the bike committee, that was such a big thing when we first started that, but it seemed like it's kind of got pretty lax, I guess I'll call it, for the Auburn side, because I haven't seen much that's come in front of us for a long time. And this has been going on for what, 12 years now or about? Like our bike lanes. We were all gung-ho that our bike lanes on Turner Street and that area out there where the mall is and all that, was someday we were going to get all that completed, and we still got dead ends. I mean, most people got to ride their bike, pick it up, put it on their shoulder, and walk it. I mean, these are ridiculous things that we thought that we were going to have a committee that was going to give us the right direction, and we were going to figure out how to get from one end to the other in the city. And the other thing, we have complained about Main Street in Auburn having a crosswalk that we put on events here every year at that park that's right across from here. And nobody's taken that serious except for a few of us councilors. And we've asked many times staff to look at that and to present something to make it safe, because when you're trying to do a function, we're lucky no one's got run over yet, but it's going to happen if we don't do something one of these days. It's just a matter of time. But if this committee gets started and then becomes another sleeper, we've wasted all our energy trying to put something like this together. And I can see some of this, the way you've got it at this point, becoming a sleeper, because they're going to be things that are going to be a year out or 2 years out, that they're not going to get things done that they feel that we should be getting done. So And I feel the same way sometimes. We've come forward with the city many times with things that takes way, way too long to not at least bring up again and talk about it again. It's like, once we bring it up, you've got it, you go with it, you run with it, you come back once, maybe twice the most, doesn't get taken care of until we bring it up again. And then once again, it goes to sleep somewhere in the corner. So if that's what's gonna happen with this committee, we're wasting our time even thinking about doing it.
Yeah,
Other que-
I'm sorry, you want me to respond? I would just say that I think that, I think public concern is really what's going to drive the workload for this committee. And I think we all know that there's a fair amount of public concern regarding these issues. It's just, that's what's going to drive the committee. And I think those concerns are going to shift as areas get more populated, or there's more, sometimes when you go to correct a road and you make an alteration on one road, it impacts 3 roads over, right? Because now people are finding workarounds to that. And so I really think that it doesn't become a sleeper committee. I think it becomes a pretty active committee, because they'll be having every public concern that we get that we forward there. Plus, it'll be a public-facing portal for them to be able to add complaints, concerns. That's really what the group is going to be working on. But I think they should also be working on some recommendations for, to the point that you're talking about. What's that connectivity for a bike access? Because most of the time it's there. You're accessing it back on the road to get to that next lane. But there's certain areas that it'll never be there, right? Because of the road design, because of the traffic volume that's on that road. It's going to be a shared use until you get to that other designated bike lane. But I think that's where areas that we can improve on is being able to really map that out for people, so they know what are those routes and where's the connectivity. And then, I think we know that there's certain roads that we probably aren't the best for bicycle connectivity, and we should be redirecting them to another road as far as being able to get through the city safely. And so that's where the signage comes in, that wayfinding that I mentioned. That's where some of that will be really beneficial, so that people know how to gain access. I think when it comes to the complete streets, Dan, I don't know, how often do you guys meet? Is it?
They meet once a month.
Once a month. So, they review the plans. I think what we hear, what we see is that they're reviewing the plans of what your engineer team already reviewed and designed, and meeting policy. I think that's really the factor. The key here is not to change from what policy states, still design those to meet the policy standard. And I think that's what they'll continue doing. And I think, and we'll continue working on that as we prioritize projects, I think is going to be really essential.
Council Cowan?
Excuse me. I love this idea. A couple questions. I can imagine there could be benefit of some periodic coordination with other committees. LATC is one that comes to mind. So if that's something you've been thinking about, how that might happen, to make it more formal. And then I do see that there would be an annual report to the city council. I would encourage us to think, I guess, a little bit beyond that. This, to me, seems like a committee that could potentially help with messages, or almost a dashboard I'm thinking of for the website, right? So if you're going to make an annual report, that's great, but could you make a story map at the same time? Or there's a dashboard so that people see, there's a place they can go to see that efforts are happening and where there's challenges, and then that could be potentially a way to collect input and concerns.
Any other questions? A few thoughts on this. So, in alignment with some of the previous comments, my observation has been that the Complete Streets Committee is very much project-focused, really. It's really driven by projects engineering brings forward. I think they've done a good job working with the engineering teams and giving them their thoughts and feedback about the projects. What's missing here today is any broad-based discussion regarding a lot of the items that are in the duties. I get calls every week, right, about traffic movements on intersections, speeding, texting, on, and you know, it's a real concern from the public, and I think we need a better way to address that. We also need a better conduit for recommendations being made to the council about these items. So Mr. Goyette mentioned in his recollection only a couple times Complete Streets come before the council. Well, we're starting year 7. I went back and Complete Streets, we're starting year 7 since Complete Streets has made a recommendation to the council. We need a better conduit to identify these higher priority community issues, raise the awareness to the council, and make recommendations to the council. So as we're planning in CIP and in some of these other projects that we're doing, as Councilor Walker pointed out, that there's a way to keep these on track and for the council be responsive to community concerns. So, you know, I see this as a different way of doing it, but I don't see it as eliminating the project-based work. It's just adding on some additional ways to get community feedback handled in a more timely manner and better recommendations coming forth to the city council. Any other thoughts or comments on this? Mr. Manager, anything further on this one?
You know, I think maybe the only other piece is if Dan can just talk a little bit about, I don't think everyone understands ATRC and the work that's done there with policy committee, technical committee.
So ATRC, the Androscoggin Transportation Resource Council, is a subset of AVCOG. It's all the member communities. We have a technical committee which looks at scoring projects based on different factors. It's all in line with gaining state and federal funds. And the state, it was a very active or important group in terms of getting funding 3 years ago before the state changed the whole program. When Lewiston, Auburn, Sabattis, Lisbon, we'd all fight for money. Now the state doesn't give us any money anymore. They hold it all themselves and tell us these are the projects we want to do, and we can make suggestions, and those are scored. The technical committee is charged with things like looking at regional transportation plans, recommending studies, regional studies. We have 3 ongoing right now. Lisbon's just come with 1. Lewiston has a big one going on. Auburn has Washington Street. The technical committee reviews those proposals, those studies, makes recommendations. Then it goes to policy committee, which is a separate committee. The policy committee is more of your executive board who go after state, federal monies, decide what the priorities, which projects we should push harder for the state to fund, which projects we should push harder for funding for overlay projects, which ones the state comes to us with a list of 10 streets in Auburn. The technical committee recommends these 5 streets. Policy can take that recommendation, recommend that to the state for funding, or we can say, well, policy committee knows that X, Y, and Z is going to happen on that street. We should wait, or we should move it ahead, depending on whatever that is, and those recommendations are made to the state. Maine Turnpike Authority will sit in on those meetings, as well as the state planning person, and there's another MDOT person, and then all the member communities sit in those meetings. It's more of a regional transportation review than specific Lewiston versus Auburn versus Sabattis, Lisbon, those sorts of things.
So I wanted Dan to just highlight that only because within the Complete Streets language, if you were to look at that, it references regional planning. And so just to demonstrate that, we do have a process, and we'll continue working that. We're very involved with those two committees. I think Dan's chairing policy probably, or still chairing policy.
Yeah.
And so, you know, there is that effort. I didn't want you to think that we were removing that and we would not be part of regional planning. We're doing it, but we're doing it through the ATRC effort.
So just to make sure I'm clear on this, that while we would be giving up a joint Complete Streets Committee with Lewiston, the current Complete Streets Committee, the whole committee looks at projects that are only in Auburn, only in Lewiston, or have an impact on both cities. And here, we would still be maintaining, through ATRC, an ability to ensure that if there's highway projects that are impacting both cities, that there's coordination of that, both from the engineering standpoint and the traffic safety standpoint.
Correct.
Other thoughts from the council? No, thank you very much. Appreciate the presentation. This will be on the agenda as an order 2 weeks from tonight at the next city council meeting. So the next item of the workshop is an executive session. This is an executive session pursuant to 1 MRSA, Section 4056A, for the city manager's quarterly evaluation. There's no action to follow. For the public, the council will reconvene at 7 p.m. Is there a motion to go into executive session?
Motion to move.
Moved by Council Walker, seconded by Council Geary. All those in favor? The council will be in executive session. The May 4th, 2026 Auburn City Council meeting will be called to order. Please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. If we could have the councilors introduce themselves, starting with Councilor Geary.
Good evening, thank you for coming. I'm Belinda Gary, Auburn City Councilor at Large.
Good evening, I'm Rachel Randall, Auburn City Councilor, Ward 1.
Good evening, Tim Cowan, Counselor for Ward 2.
Good evening, Matthew Duval, Ward 3 Counselor.
Good evening, Jeff Harmon, Mayor.
Good evening, Kelly Butler, Ward 4 City Council.
Good evening, Leroy Walker, Councilman, Ward 5.
Good evening, Adam Platt, City Council at Large.
Good evening, Brendan Edwards, Student Representative.
Phil Kroll, City Manager.
Thank you. The first item on the agenda tonight is the consent agenda. There's two items on the consent agenda. The first is accepting an asset forfeiture from the State of Maine criminal courts for the Auburn Police Department, and the second is appointing the mayor as the representative and the manager as the alternate to the 2026-2028 Maine Municipal Association Legislative Policy Committee. Is there a motion?
Motion to move.
Been moved by Councilor Walker. Is there a second? Seconded
Second.
by Councilor Platt. Vote will be by show of hands. All those in favor? 7 having voted in the affirmative and none in the negative, the motion is adopted. The next item is acceptance of the minutes of the April 21st, 2026 regular City Council meeting. Are there any errors or corrections? Not seeing any, is there a motion?
Motion to accept.
Moved by Councilor Walker.
Second.
Seconded by Councilor Cowan. The vote will be by show of hands. All those in favor? 7 having voted in the affirmative and none in the negative, the minutes are adopted. The next item is communications, presentations, and recognition. The first item is the Arbor Week proclamation, which I'll read. Whereas in 1872, J. Sterling Morton proposed to the Nebraska Board of Agriculture that a special day be set aside for the planting of trees, and this holiday called Arbor Day was first observed with the planting of 1 million trees in Nebraska. And whereas May 17th to May 23rd, 2026 is Maine Arbor Week, and whereas trees can reduce the erosion of our precious topsoil, cut heating and cooling costs, moderate the temperature, clean the air, provide life-giving oxygen, and provide habitat for wildlife. And whereas trees are a renewable resource, giving us paper, wood for our homes, fuel for our fires, and beautify our community. And whereas trees, wherever they are planted, are a source of joy and spiritual renewal. Now, therefore, I, Jeffrey D. Harmon, Mayor of the City of Auburn, by virtue of the authority vested in me, do hereby proclaim May 17th to May 23rd, 2026 as a celebration of Maine Arbor Week in the City of Auburn. I urge all citizens to celebrate Maine Arbor Week and support the efforts to protect our trees and woodlands. Further, I urge all citizens to plant trees to gladden the heart and promote the well-being of this and future generations. With that, we'll have an introduction of our new planning director, Mr. Manager.
Thank you. I've asked Eric Cousins, our Public Service Director, to come up and introduce our newest member to the team. Eric, go right ahead.
Thank you, Phil, Mr. Mayor and City Councilors. I'm very pleased to introduce to you DeCarlo Brown, our new Planning Director. DeCarlo comes to us from South Berwick with experience at the municipal and county level in economic development and planning. And just like to take an opportunity for DeCarlo to introduce himself.
Thank you all for having me this evening. My name is DeCarlo Brown. I am a planner. I'm actually your planner. I refer to myself as a professional helper by trade, and that's what I would like to do for you all. So my job is not to make decisions for you, but to help you navigate the decisions that you all will have to make just because of a changing world. So I thank you all for the opportunity to serve in this way. I am a public servant, and I look forward to being before you again.
Thank you very much. We certainly appreciate you joining the team and look forward to working with you in the future.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you.
The next item of business is the first open session of the evening. If there's any member of the public that would like to address the council on items that are not on tonight's agenda, please approach the podium and provide your name and address. Not seeing any, the open session is closed. We'll move on to unfinished business. The first item is ordinance 0704212026, amending Chapter 2, Administration of the City's Code of Ordinances regarding Article 8, Citation System of Code Enforcement. This is for second reading and a public hearing. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Councilor Cowan. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Councilor Duval. As a reminder to the council and public, this item was the subject of a previous workshop and was adopted at first reading. And the purpose of this is to move items that are related to business licenses and permits and other matters in the ordinances into the section that's used to have code enforcement enforce certain license and permit provisions. If there's any member of the public who'd like to address the council on this item, please approach the podium and provide your name and address. Not seeing any, public comment will be closed. Discussion by the council. Is the council ready for the question? The vote will be by roll call. The clerk will call the roll.
Councillor Butler?
Yes.
Councillor Walker?
Yes.
Councillor Platts?
Yes.
Councillor Gary?
Yes.
Councillor Randall?
Yes.
Councillor Cowan?
Yes.
Councillor Duval?
Yes.
7 having voted in the affirmative and none in the negative, the motion's adopted. The next item is a related item. It's ordinance 0804212026, amending Chapter 14, Business Licenses and Permits of the City Code of Ordinances regarding penalties and violations. This is their second reading and for public hearing. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve.
Moved by Councilor Walker. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Councilor Cowan. If there's any member of the public who'd like to address the council on this item, please approach the podium and provide your name and address. Not seeing any, the public hearing will be closed. Discussion by the council. Is council ready for the question? Vote will be by roll call. The clerk will call the roll.
Councillor Walker?
Yes.
Councillor Platts?
Yes.
Councillor Gary?
Yes.
Councillor Randall?
Yes.
Councillor Cowan?
Yes.
Councillor Duval?
Yes.
Councillor Butler?
Yes.
7 having voted in the affirmative and none in the negative, the motion is adopted. We'll take up new business. The first item is Order 4005042026, adopting the fiscal year 2027 budget of the Auburn School Department. Is there a motion?
Motion to move.
Moved by Councilor Walker. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Councilor Duval. If there's any member of the public that would like to address the council on this item, please approach the podium and provide your name and address. Not seeing any, public comment is closed. Discussion by the council. Is the council ready for the question? The vote will be by show of hands. All those in favor? Opposed? 6 having voted in the affirmative and 1 in the negative, the motion is adopted. The next item is Order 4105042026, authorizing the city's general obligation bonds in the principal and amount not to exceed $11,200,000 to reconfigure the Auburn Middle School to construct an addition and other renovations and improvements to accommodate grade 6 classrooms and other education space. This is for first reading. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Councilor Platt.
Second.
Is there a second? Seconded by Councilor Butler. there's any member of the public that would like to address the council on this item, please approach the podium and provide your name and address. Not seeing any, public comments closed. Discussion by the council. Council Platt.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd just like to make one comment. I responded to several constituents this week regarding this bond. There being some concern about additional debt burden onto the taxpayers, and I understand that concern. Something I wanted to clarify for everybody watching or anyone who reached out about this issue. The school department has been tasked with treating this bond as a tax net neutral event. The school department has been tasked with covering the debt service out of this bond with any operational savings that would come from this move to the Auburn Middle School. So that's a very important distinction to make here. This bond, unlike when we look at other bonds, we'll be talking about our CIP bond today for 11 some odd million as well. Those are bonds that would affect our debt service. The school bond, again, as we've tasked the school department, is to not affect taxpayer burden. So that's very important to restate, and happy to answer any questions over email, but there was some confusion about that. So I just wanted to clear that up.
Councilor Cowan.
Thank you, Councilor Platts. I'd like to add to that, just based on the estimates of the savings. So it's the key piece with this is by moving sixth graders over to the middle school, we would then enable the school department is able to close one of their facilities, and the savings with that is projected over 10 years to be $20,700,000, and that is net gain or net savings of $7.25 million over 10 years over what the bond would have cost anyway. So they're going to easily be able to cover the cost of that, and I think it's just important. It helps them to move towards a more efficient operating model as well as benefit for the students. And the other piece that I want to point out that I think has been that constituents I've talked to weren't aware of, but it was helpful to tell them is the total amount of money, the 11.2 total, is not all to add space to the building for sixth graders. 6.2 million out of that 11.2 million is for renovations and repairs to the existing structure of the Auburn Middle School. Things like a new roof, repairing a wall in the back of the first floor that's leaking and needs to be waterproof, so we're preventing further damage and mold. So I think that's an important piece to think about. Those repairs would have to be done in the next 1 to 10 years anyways. So that's just another piece for us to be thinking about as we move forward. I think it's a wise fiscal move. Thanks.
Other questions or comments from the council? Councilor Randall.
Because this is a tax net neutral bond, you'll see that I will vote in favor of it for that reason.
Councilor Gary.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I support the school in giving our children the best education possible. I understand at this point in time it's net neutral. I understand that the repairs need to be done to the building as well as to do whatever else it needs to be able to bring the kids over, the sixth graders over there. But I'm also mindful with all the housing development around in the city, once it gets going, it's unclear if those families will have kids, and if we've made a prudent decision and moved the kids before time, when we may have, because of where this housing is, and we shut down a school, we might have jumped too quick, and it might have been prudent to wait another year or so till these housings come on board and on track. So for that reason, it's not against the kids, giving them what they desperately need and giving them the best education. In my mind, it is to wait until we see where other kids are being located. So tonight, I cannot support this.
Other questions by the council? Councilor Walker.
Thank you. I won't support this either because I think the public will have to weigh in on if there's a closing of any school, and whatever school it may be, I don't believe that the public will support that greatly to close our small elementary schools. And I believe that there are a lot of modern buildings that are going to be built, and I'd like to see exactly where all this is going to happen. And then I might agree with what area they may close schools in, but at this point, I won't support this. And the other reason is, I think when maintenance has to be done to these buildings, we shouldn't wait until they're at the point of $5 or $6 million. Every year, we vote to let the school department put in money to maintain all of their buildings, and the middle school is not that old of a building that we should be putting a new roof on that building, in my opinion.
Other questions or comments? Councilor Butler.
I just want to acknowledge the process a little bit that we've been in. I think it's always great to hear everybody's position. I really want to thank the school team for going back multiple times with our requests from the council to really find a solution that could be workable to both serve the students and the families they're serving, but also be respectful of our budget process. So thank you.
Other questions or comments from the council? Representative Edwards.
I just want to say for the councilors, just like as the person who has experienced AMS the soonest, as I'm sure some of you may have gone there, but I think that this update may be one of the most needed things in the Auburn School Department, just based on being in the building and how it is at this moment in time.
Thank you. A few comments that I'd make. So, like Councilor Platts, I got a number of calls from constituents about how the finances would work on this, and specifically about the language of the order. So I think it's important to clarify this, because the way that bonds are issued, the city's full faith and credit has to go to back the bond. So the question that was raised is, it doesn't say in the order it's revenue neutral. But I think it's been very clear, as Councilor Platts has pointed out, in the conversations with the school committee and the school administration here over the last month or so, that the expectation of this and the plan that the school committee and the school administration has put forward demonstrates that there will be no increase in the tax levy, and that's the intent of the council. A couple other points that I would make based on some issues that have been raised by councilors. The first is relative to the school population. So, I think it's a valid question to raise. A lot of work has been done on this by the school committee and the school administration to model out the expected increase in population within the city with new housing, with some assistance from some experts who specialize in school population modeling. So personally, I'm quite comfortable with the work that they've done and the understanding of what we're going to see over the next period of time for school population, and I think that's been taken into account. Relative to a school closure, it's important to remember that the school committee has formed a facilities committee that's tasked with looking at a number of facility items, including the closure of a school. While no decision has been made yet, this will certainly be a public process in which there will be substantive opportunity for the public to provide their views on recommended school closures. And the last comment I would like to make about school CIP, I'd like to remind the council and the public that the school committee and the school administration did a detailed study by engaging Harriman architects and engineers to evaluate all of the school buildings and provide not only a current status, but estimates of near term in the next year or two, mid-year term out 3, 4, 5 years, and then long-term maintenance that needs to be done. I think we all recognize that there has been some deferred maintenance, but it's important to understand where we are and what needs to be done to provide appropriate facilities here over the next period of years. And part of the analysis that the school administration undertook when providing this plan about the bond took into account in this savings maintenance that would need to be done if all of these facilities stayed open. And so part of the savings is the maintenance, the capital maintenance that wouldn't need to be done. So with that, any other further comments or questions by the council? Council Platt.
Just another important fact for everyone in the audience to know is that enrollment in Auburn is decreasing right now. So that's driving these decisions. If enrollment was increasing, we'd have a different issue to think about. But my fear is that if we do nothing, we're going to be in a very similar position to our neighbors across the road, where we're looking at double-digit budget increase. I think they started at 15 or 20%, and they had to cut 20 or 30 positions. I'm probably off on my numbers, but my fear is if we do nothing, we'll see continued declining enrollment and the same fixed amount of brick and mortar square footage. And if you know anything about business, that's a really terrible formula. So that I just wanted to add that. We haven't talked about declining enrollment, but that's a big piece of this. So just wanted to add that.
Yeah, Councilor Duvall.
Yeah, I just want to add, I don't have anything to add that my fellow councilors haven't, but I do support this.
Any other comments or questions by the council? Councilor Randall.
I guess the only question that comes up for me is, right now with enrollment on the decline and doing all of the consolidation, what happens when it goes up again? Because it's inevitably going to happen.
I don't, it's a complex question, and I don't think that it's inevitable that it's going to grow beyond the estimates, right? So the work that was undertaken by the school committee and the school administration to model out the population takes into account the demographic trends and decreasing enrollment, which is not limited to Auburn. This is a pretty common trend across the state. It also takes into account population shifts that'll occur in housing units and the ratio of students to new housing units that we see. So I think the modeling that's been done over time takes into account the growth factors that you're talking about, and the facilities committee that the school committee set up is doing some fairly detailed work and estimating that out, and has come to the conclusion that at least one elementary school can be closed, taking into account all of the factors related to the school population. Other questions or comments from the council? Council ready for the question? Vote will be by roll call. The clerk will call the roll.
Counselor Platts?
Yes.
Counselor Gary?
No.
Counselor Randall?
Yes.
Counselor Cowan?
Yes.
Counselor Duvall?
Yes.
Counselor Butler?
Yes.
Counselor Walker?
No.
5 having voted in the affirmative and 2 in the negative, the motion is adopted. The next item of business is Order 4205042026, authorizing the city's general obligation bonds in the amount of $11,776,000 to finance the city's FY27 capital improvement program. This will be for first reading. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Councilor Cowan. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Councilor Platt. If there's any member of the community that would like to address the council on this item, please approach the podium and provide your name and address.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and the honorable members of the City Council. My name is John Cleveland. I live at 183 Davis Avenue in Auburn. I wanted to speak just for a few minutes about this item because I think it's important. Let me begin by saying I fully agree with it, and I hope that you pass it. These are necessary capital improvements, and they need to go forward. However, I'd like to take this opportunity, because sometimes we miss it when we have the opportunity to remind ourselves of lessons learned. In this particular case, I want to talk about the deferred capital maintenance. I know, except for two of you, none of you have been here before on these deferred items, so my comments are not at all directed at any of you individually on this, but I hope that it helps provide information for the general public when they have to wrestle when they see larger numbers for capital improvements going forward. Let me give you just some examples of what happens when we have deferred capital maintenance when they come up. And I'm just going to use three. There's a list much longer. The public safety building is one of them, long deferred. In fact, I think waiting more than 15 years. The New Auburn Fire Station, long deferred, way before most of you were on the council. Merrill Road, a road that was in terrible condition going forward. I really see some of this excessive deferral of capital maintenance really to be financial mismanagement by deficit spending on capital projects, really to the expense of the taxpayers who ultimately will have to foot the bill at some future point. Usually what happens in these situations is that when you finally get around to doing it, the costs have gone up substantially because of increase in materials and labor. So the same project that should have been done when it was due costs way more money to do it going forward. Also, some of these projects go from being, let's fix the road, to we have to reconstruct the whole road instead of just doing the repairs that were necessary. Oftentimes, interest rates go up, so you have to pay more for the money you borrow, or sometimes the cost is so high you have to go out longer than you would otherwise would for the bonds, paying more interest going forward. Oftentimes, too, when you defer these, what you have to do is temporary fixes. You have to relocate people. You have to rent additional space you would not have to rent. You have to pay for renovations for those kinds of costs and the expenses that go on with it for years and years. Public safety building was supposedly a temporary relocation to this building. What, 15 years ago or more now? Just now we're getting around to doing it, but to go forward. So I know these decisions are never easy. It's always easier to look at the capital account and say, let's just cut the capital account so we can lower the interest rate, the tax rate to where we would prefer to have it be. You're just pushing the cost off to future taxpayers at much higher costs to do that. It's not an easy decision to make these, but capital improvements are a necessary part of operation of this municipality, any business and any home, and the longer you don't take on the responsibility of doing it, the more it's going to cost. I know the decisions are not easy. I've sat where you've sat before, and it's a struggle to find how do we fund these and not make it a burden. I respect you for making decisions on these capital decisions that I see you doing this evening, and I hope the public understands that when you try to balance these, it's not because you're not mindful of the cost, but you're looking ahead and you don't want to have any more additional costs on taxpayers in the future simply to make it look like it's easy by not doing something. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Is there any other member of the public who'd like to address the council? Please approach the podium and provide your name and address. Not seeing any, public comment will be closed. Discussion by the council? Council Platt.
Thank you. I'd just like to make a comment to acknowledge work of the city manager and the city's departments for where we've whittled this down to already. I think in our original 5-year CIP plan, this year had a number of 25 million next to it, and we've whittled it down to 11. So just want to acknowledge that there's been a hell of a lot of work from all the departments to get that number that low. Where I stand on this is I do support this bond. However, I'm unwilling to support a bond that drives debt service in our budget next year. So the way I read this, and Mr. Mayor, Mr. Manager, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that with the retired principal of this year, with the retired interest of this year, this bond simply replaces that. So this is, again, another relatively net zero bond. If we were asking to bond 20 million, 25 million, that debt service next year would drive our budget. Right now, what we are retiring in debt is what we are assuming in debt. There's a small delta here at the sheet I'm looking at. The proposal, if we didn't bond anything next year, and we will, but if we didn't, we're actually paying $700,000 less next year in debt service than this year. That's if we don't bond something next year, and we will. So what that allows us to do is next year as a starting point, if we were to bond another $10 million, $11 million, the request may be more, but at $10 or $11 million bond next year, it replaces that delta. Again, we were down $700,000 next year compared to this. If we add another bond next year with $700,000 of interest payment, we'll be flat. I know it's hard to follow along without looking at the sheet I'm looking at, but I just want everyone to understand my mindset on this is that I absolutely will not support additional debt service next year, given the context of the public safety facility. So I believe this is a very responsible number. Again, this is a replacement of the retired debt, at least as I read it on this sheet. So,
Other questions or comments from the council? Councilor Cowan?
I won't quote all the numbers because I can't add them up at this hour quickly enough, but just to remind folks that a large portion of the $11,776,000 is for our road repair, reconstruction, sidewalk repairs, and you know, the amount of money that's in there is helping us move forward. But if you had the opportunity to talk to Engineer Goyette as much as we have, it's hardly getting us enough. So I want people to be aware that if we didn't do this, we'd have even more problems with our roads.
Other questions? Councilor Walker?
Thank you. I don't have a problem with supporting the $11,776,000. I do have a problem with few of the asks that are in here. I won't go through the ones that I have the problem with, but I know myself, I've been to a few of these places, I've looked at them. I think we have some wrong things that we're asking for in here or in this number, so I won't vote for the $11,776,000.
Other questions or comments from the council? Ms. Earl, did you have a comment?
I simply wanted to confirm what Councillor Platts was explaining, that yes, obviously a couple of numbers, it's not exact, but absolutely looking at that debt schedule, which is available on the auburnmaine.gov budget site, it is a net zero in effect if we were to continue moving forward with this amount.
Thank you. Other questions or comments from the council? Councilor Gary?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I too won't be voting for this. I agree with a lot of them, but not every one of them.
Other questions or comments from the council? Council ready for the question? Vote will be by roll call. The clerk will call the roll.
Councillor Gary?
No.
Councillor Randall?
Yes.
Councillor Cowan?
Yes.
Councillor Duvall?
Yes.
Councillor Butler?
Yes.
Councillor Walker?
No.
Councillor Platts?
yes.
5 have voted in the affirmative and 2 in the negative. The motion is adopted. The next item is Resolve 0205042026, adopting the 2026-2027 appropriations resolve for the municipal budget. For clarification for the public that might be watching, this is the total budget, meaning the city portion with the school budget that the councilor earlier adopted this evening. Is there a motion?
Motion to move.
Moved by Counselor Walker. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Counselor Randall. If there's any member of the public that would like to address the council on this item, please approach the podium and provide your name and address.
Honorable Mayor and honorable members of the City Council, my name is John Cleveland. I live at 183 Davis Avenue in Auburn. Budgets are always difficult. Budgets are always weighing the tax impacts versus the services that people desperately need. You had a big challenge in front of you when you started. I think it was like 12.9% increase. You, and I commend the staff as well, and the manager's team have worked hard to find the balance between providing essential services that the public wants and trying to minimize a tax increase. A compromise is never perfect. There will be people on both sides who feel that it was not the compromise they would have gotten to. But I think that you've done pretty darn well going forward to find that balance, and I commend you for it, and I hope you'll support the budget.
Thank you. Any other member of the public who'd like to address the council, please approach the podium. Not seeing any, the public hearing will be closed. Discussion by the council. Councilor Duvall.
So I want to thank the city for just working hard to get this to a place that worked for everyone and got us down to a number that's below 10%. So I really appreciate that, and I do support this. Thank you.
Any other member of the council? Councilor Cowan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just for those that haven't had the time, haven't been able to follow along with all of the discussions, just a reminder, we did look at 7.5% cut that, because we all felt even 9.7%, we know very well that's going to be a hard adjustment, but 7.5% was too much. It would have, just as one example, forced us to take an engine offline for half the days in the year, fire engine offline. So, we did look at extremes, and I think this is where we came to this balance. Happy for residents in Ward 2. I'm happy to talk more about the details. The other piece that I just wanted to remind folks is that when we started this 12.95%, 3/4 of the increase, $7.5 million, were fixed in non-discretionary funding. $3 million out of the $5.5 million of fixed costs were for the public safety bond that was public referendum. So, part of the challenge that we are doing and asking the school as well as our municipal staff was to work with what was left, what was discretionary, to find those cuts. So I also want to echo Councilor Duvall, the staff, both municipal and school, put a lot of time and thought, school committee members, a lot of work went into finding the right choices of what we could to get to 9.7%. So I support this.
Other questions or comments from the council? Councilor Platt.
Yeah, just a few more math comments for anybody watching and having concerns about this budget. I just want to be very clear about the numbers and the constituent numbers of this budget. So as the city was able to keep its operating budget right around 4.25% increase. Again, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Manager. But I just want people to hear that. I do believe that's a fairly responsible number at 4.25%. Now we had a 10% increase, 9.14% increase in the county tax. That's not something that we can change. We can't not pay our tax to the county. And then, as Tim said, we had $3 million in debt added because of the public safety building. So happy to have a discussion with any constituent about this budget. Perhaps it's too much in some people's eyes, but I want to make sure that we talk about the responsibility of this budget. It's not irresponsible. You may think it's too much, and I'm happy to have that conversation, but we were incredibly deliberate and conservative with everything that we could control. And it's important that every taxpayer understands that. We are not bonding $32 million this year for a public safety building. That $3 million debt service increase, that occurred this year. It will not occur next year. It will not occur the next year. So this, when you look at a 9.7% increase, you should be looking at this budget compared to other cities. And you should compare us to other cities, and I believe we fall right into the sweet spot. Yet we had $3 million of debt that we couldn't say no to. So I just think it's really important to frame it in that context. Again, happy to have a conversation with someone who thinks this number may be too high, but I can assure you that we, short of cutting a fire engine, cutting police, shutting down the senior activity center, and gutting the recreation department, we decided not to do that. And we could have to get us down to a 7.5% tax increase, but we felt that the taxpayers of Auburn were not asking for their municipal government to be eviscerated as they supported a public safety building. So I just wanted to say that.
Other questions or comments from the council? Council Randall.
I want to go on record as agreeing with everything that Adam Platts has said.
Any other questions or comments from the council? Yeah, so a few clarifying numbers just to follow up on Councilor Platz's comments. So the operating budget for the city is a 3.7% increase. And I've had a number of people call and ask me why it's 9.7. So as some councils have pointed out, there are increases in this budget that are outside the control of the city council. The bond issue for the public safety building, which was passed by the citizens in 2023, passed 55% for, 38 against, and the balance were blank ballots. And I think Councilor Platts has made this point tonight and made this point in the past that the citizens of this city did not vote for a new public safety building with an understanding that city services would be gutted to pay for that. So with that bond, the first debt service of the bond hitting, with the doubling of the tipping fees at Maine Waste to Energy, with the county tax, and with the increases in intergovernmental, which is 911, those four items are outside the control of the city council, and they amount to 5% of this increase. So this is very difficult because 9.7% is a very substantive tax increase, but with these items outside the council's control, to lower this, has been pointed out by several councilors, would cause very, very serious elimination of a number of city services. So with that, any other questions or comments by the council? Representative Edwards.
I just want to say thank you to the city manager and all the departments and the school board for all of your guys' work. And I can't say I'm thrilled to do it again next year, but it was amazing to watch.
Any final comments by the council? Is the council ready for the question? The vote will be by roll call. The clerk will call the roll.
Counselor Randall?
Yes.
Counselor Cowan?
Yes.
Counselor Duvall?
Yes.
Counselor Butler?
Yes.
Counselor Walker?
Yes.
Counselor Platts?
Yes.
Counselor Gary?
No.
6 having voted in the affirmative and 1 in the negative, the motion is adopted. The next item of business is Order 4305042026, amending the city's master fee schedule to add existing home occupation permit fee and code enforcement citation and civil penalties. This is a companion piece to the first 2 items that the council took up tonight. This is not an increase of fees. This is basically moving the fees onto Appendix A, as the council's been working towards having one place within the ordinance that lists all of the fees. Is there a motion?
Motion to move.
Moved by Councilor Walker. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Councilor Cowan. If there's any member of the public that would like to address the city council on this item, please approach the podium and provide your name and address. Not seeing any. Public comments closed. Discussion by the council. Council ready for the question? The vote will be by show of hands. All those in favor? Opposed? 7 having voted in the affirmative and none in the negative, the motion is adopted. The next item is Order 4405042026, adopting the PY 2026 the Community Development and Block Grant and Home Consortium Consolidated Plan and the Home ARP Amendment. Is there a motion?
Motion to move.
Second.
If there's any member of the public that would like to address the council on the CDBG and Home Consortium Plan, please approach the podium and provide your name and address. Not seeing any. Public comments closed. Discussion by the council. Council ready for the question? The vote will be by show of hands. All those in favor? Opposed? 7 having voted in the affirmative, none in the negative, the motion is adopted. The next item is Order 4505042026, granting Lotus Restaurant Auburn, Inc., DBA Lotus Restaurant at 279 Center Street, an on-premise Class A restaurant license for beer, wine, and spirits. As clarification for the council and members of the public, this is not a new issuance of a license. This is a transfer for a new owner. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Yes.
Moved by
second.
Councilor Gary, seconded by Councilor Walker. If there's any member of the public who'd like to address the council on this item, please approach the podium and provide your name and address.
Good evening. My name is Ni Jinning. I'm new owner of the Lotus Restaurant. I'm coming here to apply for liquor license, and will be follow up everything rules and make everything be safety for service alcohol. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
If there's any other member of the public who'd like to address the council, please approach the podium and provide your name and address.
My address?
Go ahead.
The restaurant address is 279 Central Street in the Auburn, Maine. And I'm from New Hampshire, so I just new here.
Okay, thank you.
Nice to see you guys. Yeah.
You can have a seat now. Any other member of the public would like to address the council on this item? Not seeing any. The public hearing's closed. Discussion by the council. Councilor Gary.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to welcome her to our council meeting, and I look forward to trying out the new business and the new management. I've always enjoyed eating there and at the parents of the previous owner, and I'm sure the quality food will still be there, and it'll provide us an even more enjoyable experience.
Thank you. Any other comments from the council?
I'd just
Councilor
like
Walker.
to say thank you. Thank you for taking it over.
Anything further from the council? Council ready for the question? Vote will be by show of hands. All those in favor? 7 having voted in the affirmative, none in the negative, the motion is adopted. The next item is Order 4605042026, approving the Casco Bay Trail interlocal agreement. As clarification for members of the public that might be watching, this is the section of the trail from Commercial Street in Portland up to Yarmouth, and from Yarmouth to Auburn on the old Berlin subdivision. A number of the councilors here were on the council when we supported the legislative bill to identify the Berlin subdivision as an interim trail designation. And in order to manage the trail and receive state and federal funds to work on the trail, it requires Board of Supervisors be formed. This interlocal agreement forms that Board of Supervisors with membership from all of the communities along the trail. Is there a motion?
So
Motion.
Moved by Councilor Platt.
Second.
Seconded by Councilor Butler. If there's any member of the public who would like to address the council on this item, please approach the podium and provide your name and address. Not seeing any. Public comment will be closed. Discussion by the council. Councilor Walker.
Would you tell me, would there be any future costs to the city of Auburn future?
So there's no direct cost to the City of Auburn for joining the interlocal agreement. There could be cost in the future, but there's no authorization to bind the city to this cost, and should the Board of Supervisors request the money be appropriated by the participants, it would need to come before the City Council, and the City Council would have to authorize any funding for the trail.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments from the council? Is council ready for the question? Vote will be by show of hands. All those in favor? 7 having voted in the affirmative and none in the negative, the motion is adopted. The next item is Order 4705042026, granting a business license fee waiver request in the amount of $500 from the American Legion Post Number 31, Alden M. Gayton Post at 426 Washington Street North. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Councilor Cowan. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Councilor Duval. If there's any member of the public that would like to address the council on this item, please approach the podium and provide your name and address. Not seeing any. Public comments closed. Discussion by the council. Council Platt.
I just had a question. Is this standard for nonprofit organizations such as the American Legion to request this waiver?
Ms. Earl?
No.
Excuse me, Ms. Clerk Carrington.
This is the first request we've had from this organization. However, in the past, the council has considered requests from nonprofit organizations and has granted a fee waiver for those nonprofit organizations.
Great, so there's some precedent for this. Great.
Yes, there is. Any other questions? Councilor Gary.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm not opposed to this, but historically, when a nonprofit like our Little Leagues and places like this, they come to us, they want us to waive their like food licenses or activities and stuff. This sets a new precedence for a business license. Like I said, I support them, but this opens the door for any other Legion post on Minot Avenue or in New Auburn, or any type of establishment that's a nonprofit to come forward.
So Clerk Carrington, there's a whole range of waivers that they could request. Back to Council Platz's point, and I think the question that Councilor Gary's raising, would the waiver of the baseline business fee, would this be new, or have we granted waivers for the business license to nonprofits in the past?
So under the ordinance, this council is granted the sole authority to waive business licensing fees. And so all of the license application waiver fees that have come forward before have all been for business licenses. So some for temporary food licenses, some for different amounts. This one is similar in the same request that it is a business license fee.
Thank you. Other questions or comments from the council? Council ready for the question? The vote will be by show of hands. All those in favor? 7 having voted in the affirmative and none in the negative, the motion is adopted. We'll move on to reports. So I have a few items for my report. A week or so ago, the Androscoggin County Literacy Volunteers had their Scrabble Fest. It's their major fundraising event for the year. I was happy to act as a judge again this year, and we also had a little excitement because we had a city team and a school department team that participated, and I'm really thankful for their participation. I was a little worried. There's 3 rounds. I was a little worried after the first round because the school committee team was a little bit ahead. But over the next 2 rounds, our city team, composed of Clerk Carrington, Joe St. Peter, and Joyce Oyster, pulled ahead, and they were able to prevail over the school team. I was quite pleased with that because I started getting a little worried I'd have to appear in front of the school committee to recognize the school team. But as the event ended, the school team, Superintendent Doris, Assistant Superintendent Anir, and a couple of the principals, Amy Heimrell and Ben Wilson, as they left the building, were already strategizing about how they were going to overcome this and win next year against the city team. So it was great fun. We really appreciate everybody participating. Updates on the comp plan committee. The comp plan committee is currently working on the land use categories, which is part of the future land use maps. They'll have a couple upcoming meetings on May 19th and on May 26th. Those are always at 6 o'clock here in the city council chambers. There'll be additional discussions about the land use categories on the policy chapters. And if folks cannot attend here in person, this is streamed just like the city council and school board committee meetings are. The city manager, Councilors Randall and Councilor Cowan and I attended the AV COG General Assembly meeting. As always, it was quite informative. It's a good chance to interact with municipalities throughout the Oxford, Franklin, and Androscoggin County region. And we also, the city manager and I attended the Central Maine Community College annual awards banquet, and it's very, very impressive. Some of the challenges some of these award winners have overcome to persevere and further their education. And we were really pleased this year. Rita Beaudry and Chief Moen represented the city in accepting the Community College's Community Partner of the Year Award for the PAL Center. And we're really happy with the collaboration between the PAL Center and the Community College, and we're happy to recognize their receipt of the award. So with that, we'll move on to council reports. Councilor Geary.
Nothing at this moment.
Councilor Randall.
I don't have anything.
Councilor Cowan.
I attended this past Saturday, the Salt and Light Community Center had their official ribbon cutting. A lot of people attended. They've taken over our building and in pretty quick order made a very pleasant place for children of all ages to come and play and explore and get a bite to eat. So if you're on Hampshire Street and you want to check that out or stop in or see if there's anything you like in the thrift store, check them out.
Councilor Duval.
Nothing at this time.
Councilor Butler.
Nothing this week.
Councilor Walker.
No, nothing.
Councilor Platt.
Nothing from the school, but I just wanted to share that I was able to take my daughter to 7 Jam Kitchen, which is a new restaurant in the Auburn Mall. I just want to say that because they're a new business. It's important to support. It was very good. They're open limited hours, but go check it out. They need your support. That's how small businesses survive in this community. But it was very good. 7 Jam Kitchen. It's the old Papa Gino's in the mall.
Thank you, Representative Edwards.
Yeah, just a few things. So AP testing is happening for the next 2 weeks. EL has prom Saturday. This week is Teacher Appreciation Week, so if you know any teachers, congratulate them. Community Service Day will be May 15th, and our sports season is going pretty good already. And the Model UN team will head to the state conference next Wednesday, and we have 14 days left for seniors with graduation on May 30th.
Thank you. Mr. Manager.
Thank you. Not that they're counting or anything, right, on that countdown. So just a couple items. One, Lobster Fest will be May 16th. Really encourage the public to come out. That's one of our signature events that will be right in the downtown. Entertainment, food trucks, and a lot of great activities taking place. And then the last one is we had our orientation day today for new hires. 3 very critical positions for the city. We've been able to bring on board our planning director, who you met earlier, but also a city electrician and a mechanic at PW. Those are just vital roles to our operation on some of the challenges that, especially electrician and DeCarlo, not that you're not special, but the mechanic and our electrician, very vital to our operation to fill those positions. We're really pleased. So.
Great. Thank you. Ms. Earl, the quarterly finance report.
Yes, so my apologies for not being at last meeting. School vacation week, I got to spend some time with my 11-year-old. So this is the quarterly report covering the period of January to March, which is the third quarter. That means that 75% of the fiscal year had been completed for this report. Our revenues represent a healthy 89.4% of projections, and we expect that to continue to rise throughout the end of the year. And our expenditures are at 76.05% of projections. Everything is right on track. We're very comfortable with these numbers. I would like to point a couple of things out rather than just saying everything's great and I have nothing else to say. So I would like to point out the top 7 revenue section. Just because our revenue is so healthy, I wanted to go over a little bit of that with you. So our top 7 revenues are in the second page of my report. Those cover 56% of our total general fund revenues. So that's property tax, state revenue share, vehicle excise tax, homestead reimbursements, EMS transport, building permits, and marijuana business licenses. There are a couple that are very close, right below those, but these are our top 7. These are currently at 95.15%. So all very healthy numbers, and like I said, we expect to continue seeing healthy growth with those revenues through the end of the fiscal year. Our expenditures had a slight decrease over prior year. As you all know, based on the direction and speaking with you all, that we've been trying to work on budgeting towards actual so that we're not over budgeting on these items, but there can be some kind of scary moments when you have an increase in electricity, or the dam goes down and we're not getting our credits for those types of things. So I just wanted to point this out so that you could see that the work that you're doing with the budget is actually very close to accurate, and it's working. But if anybody else has any specific questions on this, I'm happy to answer that.
Questions from the council? Is there a motion to accept the report?
Motion to accept.
Moved by Councilor
Second.
Walker, seconded by Councilor Platt. All those in favor? Thank you. The report is accepted. We'll move on to the final open session of the evening. If there's any member of the public that would like to address the council on items not on tonight's agenda, please approach the podium and provide your name and address.
I'll be back. One complaint is your sound system. Your sound system.
Yeah.
My name's Gary Tatro, by the way, 16 Hazen Street,
you.
Auburn, Maine. I don't know if you're familiar with the High Street, Washington Street, and Minot Avenue intersection. A number of years ago, I approached the city manager, and he did something about it, which helped our exit from Western Avenue, because they were directing the traffic to the left-hand lane that was heading out towards through the turnpike. There's one other thing that needs to be addressed, and under the initial engineering of that area, there was a place to turn left just above the actual turn that we're using today. And according to, at least when I heard, the snowplow drivers were having a lot of difficulty going through that turn in order to clear it up. Well, what's been happening lately is when somebody wants to make a left-hand turn at that intersection, traffic backs up almost to the light on the other end. In my estimation, if you went back and looked at the original engineering, people should be going around that section and make their right-hand turn there in order not to hold up the traffic that's trying to go straight up, and they're just sitting there with this guy trying to turn left. And that's what I'm just suggesting, that somebody really takes a close look at it. It doesn't bother me much because I just zoom right through on the right-hand side and I go up Western Avenue, and the traffic has been better for me that way. But it isn't good for people that are heading out the other way. The other side of this thing is we don't have much in the way of police coverage as far as going up Minot Avenue, going out Washington Street. I know you're having difficulty because it's a 4-lane highway or a 2-lane highway and controlling the speed, but going up Minot Avenue, It's unbelievable. They go up through there 60, 70 miles an hour. You know they're going that fast because they're going just like this one. They go through. I think we need to have a little more police presence there occasionally in order to slow people down. That's all I have for now. I'll have more later. Thank you.
A few follow-up comments I would make that might be of interest. So there is currently traffic engineering study going on that includes Minot Avenue, the Rotary, and up to Union Street bypass. So the Assistant City Manager will make a note. I think Mr. Cousins left, but the Assistant City Manager will make a note to let Mr. Cousins know.
Well, I was walked through with the city manager, Aho, back then, because I was having trouble getting out of Western Avenue. People just were putting their turn signals on, they weren't getting in the right lane,
Right.
and
So-
consequently, somebody, when they redid that, didn't they should have put green arrows on those lights and say no left-hand turn. That's what it should be, in order to keep that traffic moving. That's my estimation.
Yeah,
Thank you.
so Mr. Dute will make sure that your comments are passed on. And then relative to the traffic enforcement, there's been a concerted effort by the city manager and the police department. The police chief has created a new traffic enforcement strategy, and the areas that you mentioned are certainly problematic areas that are noted in that strategy, and they're working on having increased enforcement because of the complaints that we get there. Is there any other member of the public that would like to address the council? If so, please approach the podium and provide your name and address. Not seeing any, the open session is closed. There is no executive session this evening. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Moved by Council Walker, seconded by Council Platts. All those in favor? The council will be adjourned.